Christian theology traditionally understands the Apostle Paul's extreme suffering through lenses of original sin or spiritual refinement. However, applying a contemporary anthropological framework exposes a distinct mechanical operation behind his physical trials. In Michael Taussig's framework, mimesis operates as an active ontological participation, the capacity to produce similarity by yielding into the other. This is the process through which a culture crafts what Taussig calls second nature. On the left is the standard view, a linear timeline from Paul's conversion to martyrdom. On the right, the mimetic hypothesis, an interconnected circular feedback loop. Here, the copy actively mirrors the original, drawing power directly from the divine source, transcending simple symbolic representation. This principle, known as sympathetic magic, allows a representation to acquire the specific traits of its original. If Paul's suffering is a divinely orchestrated mirror of Christ's suffering, it shares in the redemptive nature and power associated with that sacrifice. Under this model, the physical and emotional toll of Paul's ministry is the exact mechanism of his divine empowerment, rather than an unfortunate byproduct of his calling. To verify the mechanics of this theory, we have to build a model from first principles. The first variable in this equation is alterity. In anthropology, alterity is the state of being other. It is the deliberate, manufactured creation of absolute separation. Paul identifies himself in Romans 1:1 as aphorizo, set apart for the gospel. This divine election requires a foundational cut from his previous context to establish a new, distinct relationship with the divine. We map this onto an anthropological model. The starting point, a single node representing Paul, isolated in a void. This separation mirrors the creative logic of Genesis, where light is achieved through a definitive division, forging Paul's distinct identity. Divine election is an act of profound isolation. This state of alterity establishes the painful prerequisite for the mimetic suffering that follows. Taussig uses the term first contact to describe the initial encounter across a vast power differential. Paul's experience on the road to Damascus serves as the site of this profound initial reorientation. The city of Damascus provides the physical grounding for this abstract theory. This was a tangible location where a specific, embodied event took place. To explain the physical trauma of that event, we apply the concept of optical tactility. This is the phenomenon where a visual encounter has a direct physical impact on the body. Acts 9 records a blinding light that surrounded Paul. In Taussigian terms, this transcends the optical, becoming a tactile force striking Paul with physical mass. The intensity of this divine light results in 3 days of physical blindness. This immediate disability erases the boundary between the visual and the tactile, leaving Paul to experience the divine at a visceral, embodied level. Returning to our model, we see this first contact play out. The divine enters the system, establishing an overwhelming, jagged connection to Paul. Divine revelation functions as a violently embodied event, physically breaking the subject to prepare them for a life of mimetic endurance. The trauma of first contact transitions into second contact, the ongoing lived imitation of Christ. This imitation is governed by sympathetic magic, where a copy acquires the specific attributes and power of the original admirers. In Acts 9:16, Christ explicitly states his intention to show Paul how much he must suffer for his name. This pronouncement suggests that Paul's trials were a preordained, orchestrated path. The interaction stabilizes. The jagged line transforms into a pulsing loop. Paul writes that while afflicted, he is not crushed, mirroring the original. His extreme physical hardships, beatings, shipwrecks, and exposure act as the performative engine driving this loop, reinforcing the connection. As the copy yields into the suffering of the other, it begins to acquire the specific attributes of the original. Paul's resilience ceases to be a human effort and becomes a structural byproduct of tapping into the divine source through the mimetic loop. Physical hardship provides the essential performative engine fueling Paul's sympathetic connection to divine power. If suffering currently powers this mimetic connection, what happens at the end of time? Does the cycle of pain repeat forever? Anthropology identifies an endpoint called the cessation of mimetic excess. This is the moment where the accumulated residue of suffering generated by the cycle is finally exhausted. Revelation 21:4 describes this ultimate resolution, promising a world where God wipes away every tear, and there is no more death or pain. This is the breaking of the mirror. In the new creation, the mimetic cycle of suffering is finally shattered and falls away. Until that resolution, the current mirror functions as a subversive tool. It hijacks the pain of the world and redirects it for a redemptive purpose. This hijacked suffering allows the believer to actively participate in divine glory, rather than succumbing to the cyclical despair of the world. Applying anthropological theory does not overwrite theology. It provides the precise, high-resolution vocabulary necessary to grasp the visceral mechanics of divine orchestration.